make every run today. So if they have to leave their child at the bus stop, they can be assured that once the weather lifts or once the fog lifts, that every bus will make their run today.
All right. Fred Murphy with Polk County Schools, thank you very much for joining us.
All right, thank you very much for your help.
Thank you, Fred. We want to check back in with Captain Al. He was one of the first choppers over the scene this morning, bringing us some pretty dramatic pictures. We're going to check in with him now for an update on the situation out there.
Well, Dee, I tell you, the most amazing thing right now is as the fog slowly moves away, and it's by no means completely dissipated, I'm starting to see the emergency crews move in. What they've been able to do is isolate the accidents themselves and keep them pretty much compact, get all the other vehicles out of the way, but they're slowly making their way into these areas where that fire was. Of course, there are a number of engines in there. I just heard from I want to say one of the officials up here monitoring from the air that there are still people actively trapped, and they're trying to get to all this. But as you can imagine, when you can't see 10 or 15 feet in front of you, and you're trying to move a vehicle slowly through it and safely through it, it's a very difficult process. They're waiting for the fog to lift, and so are we. We'll continue to watch any news we get. We'll certainly let you know immediately. Back to you.
Hey, Captain Al, Heather McClanahan just told us that there were 5 vehicles still burning. Can you see those fires from where you are?
Yeah, Dia, those are the last remaining vehicles. That's actually the epicenter, if you will, for us this morning. That's where the tractor trailers caught fire, and as you can see, all around that area, probably 50, 60 feet around it, vehicles had caught fire. It was a very, very hot fire. We had to watch it from a distance, but you can see it rising out of the fog. That seems to be where everybody is localized right now, trying to get those fires completely put out, and then, of course, moving through the fog itself as it clears out so that they can look for anybody trapped or still in need of assistance.
So what we're looking at right now is mostly fog still, not necessarily smoke from those fires.
Well, yeah, that's fog, Dan. If I widen the shot out a little bit, you can see to the left, which would be to the southeast, that it's pretty much breaking up back toward Winter Haven. I can see almost all the way down to Bartow. But I-4, this particular little piece right here, still, when we were just talking about this up here, the helicopters, that this seems to be still the one big piece of fog. This is a low area, a lot of that moisture there from the Auburndale area, and those lakes just push all this right on through. But the good news is hopefully this will be broke up in the next hour or so.
All right, thank you, Captain Al. Of course, Heather McClanahan from the Polk County EMS talked about fog hampering the rescue efforts, the crews heading out to that area trying to get there. Susan Casper talked to us earlier about some of the problems that they were having getting closer to the accident scene. We want to check in now with her on the phone for an update. Susan?
Dia, good morning. We have been asked to turn around as a precaution. We, right now, I just got off the phone with the Florida Highway Patrol. Several people are still trapped in their vehicles. His exact words to me were, Susan, we cannot even see our hands in front of our faces right now. The smoke is that thick. Now, we're dealing with, on the ground, the fire smoke. We don't have any fog. He said most of the fog where the crashes are has lifted. It is pure smoke, so they are having to cover their faces with masks. So many people are still trapped in their vehicles. They are still trying to account for fatalities versus those who they need to rescue. We right now are sitting in a sort of a makeshift command center that is just about a mile from where the first crash happened. We are told that as many as 20 semis are still on their side. They're overturned. There is a line, an absolute line of wrecker trucks that are lined up just next to us. Those trucks are being escorted in one at a time, probably, I'd say 24 deep right now. They're being escorted in one at a time through this thick, thick smoke to try and start uprighting some of these overturned semis. We are also told, and as we were driving out, it was actually extremely sad to see some people who have gotten out of their cars and started walking because it's so thick. Now, we don't know if those are victims from the actual crashes or if those are people who simply are walking from their homes. We don't know. We're in the process now of setting up some interviews, so we'll get you that sound hopefully very shortly. But I can tell you, one at a time, these truckers, these wrecker trucks are being escorted in, and they said the situation, according to Trooper Larry Coggins, who's there at the scene, it is absolutely undescribable right now because they can't see what they're dealing with. I mean, it's absolutely, and having just come out of it, you can't even see in front of you. So I'm going to continue to gather new information. I'm hopefully going to get you some sound very soon, and we will keep you updated from here at the scene in Polk County. Back to you.
Susan, can I ask you a quick question here? Go back to what you said at the beginning. You said you were asked to turn around for your safety. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Absolutely. We were driving into the thick of it where the actual crashes happened, which is off Old Grade Road. We were being escorted by I believe it was, I can't really tell because it didn't have any markings on the vehicle, but he did have flashing lights. It's some sort of emergency vehicle. There was a point where we had to stop because all of these other Florida Highway Patrol troopers and Polk County Sheriff's deputies' cars were in the road. Their lights were on, but no one was in the vehicles. As we began to kind of maneuver around, we realized what was happening. You simply can't see well enough to drive, so people are abandoning their vehicles and walking. We, at that point, were told it's simply not safe for our live truck, as large as it is, to be in that area because if emergency vehicles come, speeding down, we could very well be in the way. So we were asked, and of course we obliged, to turn around and please come back to this area. And what happens is, Dan, as we got closer to these clubs, which is, as we're being told, as many as 30 to 50 different crash sites, you can't even see in front of you. So they're having a lot of personnel are having to walk it, and they're in masks, and it's insane. So I can tell you right now that we are in the process of hopefully some pictures. We have some troopers that we've called upon to help us out, and they're doing their best to try to give us some camera phone pictures that we will email the station. So if that happens, we will hopefully get you some of that. Now, we did shoot a little bit of video, which we're going to be turning around here momentarily once we get our mask up and get our live shot going, so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. But for our safety, it simply wasn't safe to drive any further. These folks, unfortunately, that are still trapped are having to rely on emergency personnel on foot versus in their vehicles.
And Susan, of course, Heather McClanahan talked a little bit about that, about the fact that they were having such difficulty getting to the scene because of all that smoke and, of course, because of all those vehicles that are blocking the lanes.
Exactly, and that's what we were seeing. We're starting, at least where we're starting to see people walking. We saw a gentleman with his head down, and you could just tell he has been in it for quite some time. The smoke is so thick that it's starting to affect our lungs. Even Frank, my photographer, and I were having to turn the air conditioner on. The vents were just the smoke was filling up even here in our live truck. So it's that thick, and it's becoming a respiratory issue for a lot of the personnel. That's why they're wearing masks. Some of them don't have masks, so they're having to come back. I can also very quickly tell you that those that are in the cars that are trapped, they don't know if they're actually alive at this point or if they're dealing with fatalities. So they're trying to have some urgency, but it's simply, the smoke is just simply hampering their efforts at this point.
Just an absolute incredible scene out there. We're watching some video right now of a firefighter trying to put out a fire. We don't know if that's a car burning or what's going on, but we have been told that there are as many as 5 cars that are still on fire, 4 people trapped in their cars, 6 semis of the 20 that were initially involved in this multi-car pileup have been burned. So we're watching firefighters right now trying to put out a blaze right now.
Susan Casper was reporting live for us there in Polk County near the scene of this multi-car crash. Wayne Shattuck now joins us from the ABC AccuWeather Center with a check on how the weather is affecting the scene.
Well, it certainly was the perfect setup this morning. And folks in the control room, if you get some new live pictures, go ahead to those right away as I'm speaking. But we'll tell you what the setup was. Lots of low-level moisture, a lot of water vapor in the lowest levels. And as the temperatures cooled near dawn, that water vapor changed over to water droplets, in essence a cloud right on the surface. That combined with the calm winds produced that very thick fog that is still extremely thick, with visibilities down to or less than a quarter of a mile in a number of spots in the inland area, and particularly where you're seeing right now. What we need to have happen, and this should be happening in the next 1 to 2 hours, the sun will continue to heat up that atmosphere. That will erode the cloud, the fog, in that it will warm that atmosphere, warm that air, and change some of that fog back from water droplets back to a water vapor. Also, with the heating of the sun, we should start to stir up the atmosphere a little bit, get a little more winds, and that too should start to help dissipate that fog. But it's going to be another 1 to 2 hours before we get any real improvement. Back to the desk.